Good morning. Good to have you with us on this Friday. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. We're going to begin this hour with that major shakeup at the DOJ. The president firing Attorney General Pam Bondi after a tumultuous 14 months on the job. A person familiar with White House deliberations tells NBC News the president had grown increasingly frustrated with Bondi for failing to execute on his vision.
On social media, the president posted that Bondi faithfully served as AG and will now be going into the private sector. He announced Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche is now set to take over as acting AG. Blanche once served as the president's personal defense attorney. Bondi's exit comes after a string of losses for the Justice Department, which struggled to bring successful cases against the president's political opponents. Bondi also faced public backlash over her handling of the Epstein files. For more, let's bring in NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Julie Sirkin and our senior justice reporter Ryan Riley. Good morning to both of you. Julie, let's start with you. We saw that Bondi was at the president's side when he attended those oral arguments at the Supreme Court on Wednesday. One day later, she's fired. What more do we know about her firing and why now?
Yeah, apparently at that point, when she was sitting next to the president, at least for a short while inside the Supreme Court, she already got a talking to. The president already expressed his disappointment in her, and it really wasn't the first time. Remember months ago when the president accidentally seemed to post something publicly on his Truth Social, essentially asking Pam Bondi to look into his political opponents, to prosecute them? You see that on your screen. That was a moment that we certainly recognized, that we sort of paid close attention to, because that was only the beginning of a series of private and public conversations the president had with her, where he essentially wasn't happy with how she was doing her job, not going after his political opponents. We know that he was in some sort of a retribution campaign. That's part of the reason why he wanted an attorney general that was so loyal to him. Also, as you mentioned, her handling of the Epstein files, saying she had a client list on her desk, and then weeks later testifying under oath before Congress, saying that client list never existed. I want to read you her statement. She said, after the president had fired her, over the next month, I will be working tirelessly to transition the office of Attorney General to the amazing Todd Blanche. Remember, that is her deputy, before moving to an important private sector role I am thrilled about, where I will continue fighting for President Trump and this administration. That private sector role is something the president teased as well, but no details on what that is.
Ryan, let's talk about why this was a challenge for her to execute this vision of the president.
Yeah, I mean, in part because of posts like that Julie just highlighted in terms of Donald Trump calling for the prosecution of his enemies. That's something that is such a gift to a defense attorney, because that is something that you're going to be able to use down the line and say, this was a selective and vindictive prosecution. I mean, remember, it's not as though this was like a lack of trying to go after Donald Trump's political enemies. They did, in fact, get an indictment against James Comey as well as Letitia James, and those were both thrown out because of the illegal appointment of another Trump loyalist who was not, eligible, was not allowed to be in that role. And that was someone, Lindsay Halligan, who was appointed in the Eastern District of Virginia, who had no prosecutorial experience at all when she was appointed to that role. And then in the District of Columbia, of course, you also have, as NBC News first reported, the attempt to prosecute 6 sitting members of Congress that was universally rejected by those grand juries. That's such a rare occurrence. The old saying is you could get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich. But in this instance, because of these public attacks, I think in part, where it was very clear this was politically motivated, those concerns about the First Amendment were very prominent in the minds of grand jurors, and they weren't able to convince a single one of them that there was a crime that was committed here. And so that's the sort of hurdles that they run into. It's not so much for lack of trying. It's just that the facts, the law, and some of Donald Trump's own statements have undermined those attempts to prosecute his political enemies.
Julie, beyond the ham sandwiches, back in February, things got pretty heated during that hearing before the House Judiciary Committee focused on the Epstein files. We're going to show one of really the key moments that played out in front of the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein. Then we'll talk on the other side.
Will you turn to them now and apologize for what your Department of Justice has put them through?
I'm not going to get in the gutter for her theatrics.
So yesterday, the family of one of Epstein's victims, Virginia Giuffre Roberts, who died by suicide, reacted to her firing. They said in a quote that another one falls on the sword to protect the powerful. We hope she has the courage to testify and actually do right by survivors this time. They're referring to another bipartisan subpoena that Bondi received last month. So is Bondi off the hook for that, or is she still going to need to testify?
I don't think she's off the hook, guys, and don't take my word for it. We heard from James Comer, who is the top Republican on the House Oversight Committee that is leading this probe into the Epstein files, into the investigation. Remember, this is separate than that bipartisan House effort that compelled the release of all of the files that the victims were then completely unsatisfied with. James Comer actually said that since Bondi is no longer Attorney General, he will speak with Republican members and see what they decide, certainly not ruling out still bringing her in under that subpoena. Democrats, however, including Ro Khanna, who was the top Democrat who led that effort to compel the release of those files, he was thrilled with this move, essentially saying that Democrats shone a light on this. They forced her out, and so did the survivors, because remember, she really came under so much scrutiny when it comes to the handling of those Epstein files. Even though Todd Blanche was really the visible face of this, the tip of the spear of this, again, her deputy, now the acting Attorney General, she's really somebody who became the face of this either way, because she said she had a client list, as I mentioned, then she said she didn't have one. The Epstein survivors saying that this administration promised transparency and they were not following through on it. And also what comes to mind for me is, remember a couple of weeks after the president took office, we had influencers, right-wing conservative influencers, who essentially received some of those documents, the binders that they walked out of the White House holding, and they came under fire too. Why wasn't that just brought out to the American people? So certainly members of Congress still have so many questions for her. She is somebody that a bipartisan duo, Thomas Massie and Khanna, who I mentioned, said they will try to hold her in contempt for failing to release all of those files on time. I suspect they still have a ton of questions for her, including why she went back and forth on information she had, then saying she didn't have it. But we'll see ultimately if the Republican-controlled House is going to still bring her in.
So we've been mentioning, Ryan, Todd Blanche, now the acting AG. He was the lead criminal defense attorney during President Trump's trial over hush money payments to adult film actress Stormy Daniels. That was back in 2024. Does his appointment hint at anything about the direction now of the DOJ?
I mean, I think there were some hints about Todd Blanche maybe, sort of slotting himself in earlier, because he's made a lot of appearances on conservative news channels, on conservative social media channels and podcasts. He also has taken on more of a prominent role with the press. He handled that press conference on the latest one on the Epstein files and the release of those documents instead of Pam Bondi. And he hasn't had the same amount of sort of verbal stumbles that Pam Bondi has. Immediately out of the gate, the first thing that Pam Bondi did was hold a press conference. And it was astonishing to be in the room with all of these, Justice Department reporters, because she used this phrase, "we have charged," right? And that led everyone in the room to think, oh my gosh, they filed a criminal case against New York, and it turned out that it was civil litigation, but she was using just the wrong basic terminology. And those stumbles had continued throughout her career, and as on the Hill, as well as with the press, where there were these constant verbal gaffes that would lead people in the wrong direction. And Todd Blanche hasn't had as many of those, and he was at CPAC just the other week and had a strong presence there, and he hasn't had the same amount of sort of verbal mistakes, I think, that he saw with the now, I guess, outgoing Attorney General.
Julie, Bondi's exit wasn't the only personnel shakeup in Washington yesterday. So before we let you go real quick, there was another high-profile firing, this one at the Department of Defense. What are we learning?
Yeah, Army Chief of Staff Randy George. Look, according to Sean Parnell, who's the spokesperson for the Department of Defense, Randy George retired. But we know, based on what Hegseth, the defense secretary, has been doing, is purging people connected to the prior administration. And that's exactly where Randy George found himself in. He was confirmed in a near unanimous vote back in 2023. He was a chief senior military assistant to Lloyd Austin, the former Secretary of Defense under President Biden. And so we know that Hegseth wanted to purge and fire people that he deemed were not loyal to the president and this administration, to his mission. So he essentially pushed out Randy George and two other senior officers under his command. And again, this is not the first time, and we expect not the last time that Hegseth has done something like this. He wants to maintain a structure around him that is full of loyal people that won't question him and that won't question the president either.
All right, Julie and Ryan, thank you both.
With those moves inside the Pentagon in mind, let's move now to the latest out of the Middle East as the fifth week of the war with Iran comes to a close. President Trump is warning Iran that the U.S., quote, hasn't even started destroying what's left. of the country after posting this video on Truth Social. This is of a U.S. bombing of a bridge between two Iranian cities.
Iranian media says 8 people were killed in this strike on that bridge in Iran. Officials say it was still under construction. This escalation of strikes on civilian infrastructure comes as the oil prices once again surge past $100 a barrel. The UN Security Council is expected to vote tomorrow on a proposal to authorize defensive action to help vessels travel safely through that critical Strait of Hormuz.
NBC News international correspondent Raf Sanchez joins us now from Doha, Qatar, with the latest from the region. Raf, good morning. So just tell us what the latest on the ground is there in the Middle East as this conflict closes its 5th week, as we mentioned.
Well, guys, good morning. The U.S. and Israel appear to be stepping up strikes on civilian infrastructure inside of Iran. Overnight, Iranian officials say the Louis Pasteur Institute, which is a public health institute in Tehran where they made vaccines during COVID, was hit in an airstrike. Now, we don't know at this point whether it was the U.S. or Israel responsible. Neither side has claimed responsibility. But human rights organizations are warning that attacks like this on civilian infrastructure are potential war crimes. You mentioned President Trump taking credit for the U.S. strike on that bridge earlier, just raising concerns that we may be entering a phase of the war where very little in Iran is off limits. Now, the Iranians are responding in kind. In Kuwait, they say a desalination plant was hit by an Iranian attack. Those are those critical facilities that turn salt water into drinking water. And countries here in the Gulf, including Qatar, where we are now, are very, very dependent on those plants for their drinking water needs. And officials here are warning there could be disaster across the region if those plants become targets. Guys.
Ralph, this morning we're also hearing from Mohammad Javad Zarif. He's a former top Iranian diplomat who actually helped negotiate that 2015 Iran nuclear deal. He no longer holds any official position, but he is considered an ally of the current Iranian president. So what is he proposing?
Yeah, this is kind of an interesting document, guys. It's published in Foreign Affairs, which is an American magazine, but it seems to be aimed both at the Trump administration but also at the Iranian regime with a roadmap for a way to end the war. He basically proposes a deal where the Iranians would agree to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. They would accept limitations on their nuclear program, including limits on how much they can enrich. And in return, the United States would lift all sanctions on Iran. Now, it's really not clear if this is an agreement that either side at this stage can say yes to. In many ways, it looks a little bit like the 2015 nuclear deal was negotiated under the Obama administration. But Zarif says that at this stage, Iran has the upper hand as far as he's concerned in the conflict. The time is on the Iranian side as the stock markets slump, as you see oil prices surging. And he is urging officials in Tehran to use this moment of advantage, as he sees it, to make a deal that could be good for Iran's long-term future. Guys.
Raf, as oil prices now surge past $110 a barrel, the pressure is on. It has been on, but even more so now to open up this critical Strait of Hormuz. President Trump has been urging U.S. allies to step up. He told The Telegraph earlier this week that he was even considering pulling the U.S. out of NATO over this. Has there been any progress toward getting that critical passageway reopened?
There really hasn't, guys. The Iranians are still very firmly in control over there. They are controlling the flow of ships coming out. About 110 ships going through before the war. That number about 10 every day at the moment. There was a summit in London yesterday that didn't include the United States, where a number of American allies in Europe and in the Middle East discussed ways to try to reopen the strait diplomatically. One of the outcomes of that was they said that they would explore putting sanctions on Iran until the strait was reopened. I got to say, guys, with American and Israeli airstrikes just raining down on Iran and that not being enough to pressure them to reopen the straits, it's really very, very doubtful that new sanctions from the Europeans are going to have any effect. Guys.
All right, Raf Sanchez, thank you very much.
An attempted murder trial in Hawaii that's gaining national attention has taken another turn. A Maui doctor accused of trying to kill his wife on a birthday hike was back on the stand Thursday facing intense cross-examination. Prosecutors say Dr. Gerhard Koenig tried to push his wife off a cliff, then attacked her with a rock. He testified he knew about her extramarital affair, but insists she attacked him first. and he was acting in self-defense. We should warn you, some of the language and images might be disturbing here. NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson has more.
Grueling testimony from Dr. Gerhard Koenig, now taking the stand in his own defense.
Do you blame him?
Koenig telling the jury it was his wife Ariel who dealt the first blow, striking him in the head with a rock during a birthday hike on this Oahu trail. Koenig says he hoped the trip would help save the couple's marriage after he learned of what they called Ariel's emotional affair with a coworker.
Gerhard, did you have a plan to kill your wife on the mountain that day?
No.
Did you try to throw her off a cliff?
No.
Did you try to stab her with syringes?
No.
When you hit her with the rock twice, why did you do it?
In self-defense.
Prosecutors pushing back in cross-examination, starting with quizzing Koenig about spying on his wife's texts.
You were mad, right?
I was not mad.
You were not mad when you confronted your wife about these messages.
I was upset.
And digging into their turbulent relationship.
After you confronted Ariel, called her a lying called her a whore, you wanted her to move out of the house. Is that right?
That's right.
And last week, Ariel testified the encounter had nothing to do with self-defense, describing a deliberate, vengeful attack.
He takes a deep breath, and then he just starts hitting my face and my head with a rock.
Witnesses for the state also included Gerhard's 20-year-old son from a previous marriage, testifying his father FaceTimed him immediately following the attack.
What did the defendant tell you during that call?
That Ari, my stepmom, had been cheating on him, and that he tried to kill her.
Koenig testifying he was contemplating suicide during the call, but denied the confession, saying his son misunderstood.
He saved my life that day, but I put him in this position where he is now, where he thinks I tried to kill her.
And our thanks to Steve Patterson for that report. The trial could go to the jury as soon as next Tuesday. If convicted, Koenig does face life in prison.
This morning, the Artemis II mission has slipped Earth's gravitational pull and is officially headed toward the moon. NASA's Orion spacecraft fired its main engine last night to bring itself out of Earth's orbit and put those 4 astronauts on a trajectory around the moon. Now, that burn, it consumed around 1,000 pounds of fuel in less than 6 minutes. The crew will now spend the next few days preparing for their historic lunar flyby. Our NBC News senior correspondent Tom Costello is keeping a close watch on the mission. He brings us the latest. Tom, good morning.
Hey, Joe and Savannah, good morning. At this very minute, the crew of Orion, of course, remember that they've named Orion. Their ship is Integrity. They are right now asleep. They have now finished mission day 2. They're on a different day schedule, of course, than Earth. So mission day 2, right now they're about 180,000 miles to the moon and right now about 72,000 miles from Earth. So they are well on their way. Last night, they hit the burn, if you will, what they call the TLI injection. That sounds very fancy. Translunar injection, sending them onto the moon at 25,000 miles per hour. So they will arrive after a 4-day trip, and then they'll do the flyby of the moon at about a distance of 4,000 to 6,000 miles. And that will enable them to see pieces of the moon never before seen. Now, of course, Apollo came around the far side of the moon, but because they were so close, they couldn't see the whole thing. Now you have Artemis coming around, and they will take a wider view of the moon, and so the 4 astronauts on board will document that with great photography, and we're really looking forward to hearing what their perceptions are and their descriptions. They've had a couple of issues while they have been up in space. They've had a problem with the loo, if you will. The lunar loo went bad on them. The toilet went bad on them. And so Christina Cook, one of the mission specialists, had to become a space plumber to fix this thing. And she spent quite a bit of time working on it. They claim they've got it fixed now, or a relief to all, especially the folks up there in that spacecraft. The toilet is now working again. Separately, a problem we can all deal with and relate to, and that is their Microsoft Outlook crashed, apparently. Both of them crashed, and that required mission control IT specialists to remote log in and get their Outlook up and running again. That is apparently working. And so after having yesterday been awakened by mission control with the John Legend song, they're back asleep again now, and they are looking forward to mission day 3. One kind of fun note here is that they have all been so captivated by the images of the Earth when they were up at high Earth orbit that they smeared the window with their, looking out the window and the fingerprints and fogging it up. So they had to call down the mission control and say, how do we clean this window so we can keep looking out? This is an exciting mission. Keep in mind, 10-day mission looping around the moon and then splashing down off the coast of California on mission day 10. Guys, back to you.
All right, Tom, thank you.
There is new video of the moments after Tiger Woods' car crash, which ended with his arrest for DUI. The footage, released by a sheriff's department in Florida, shows deputies performing field sobriety tests on the golfer. NBC News correspondent Jesse Kirsch has the details.
Left. The newly released video shows Tiger Woods performing a series of sobriety tests.
You understand?
Yeah.
Perfect.
And the moment deputies handcuff him,
So at this time, if you believe your normal faculties are impaired, okay, and you're under that unknown substance, okay, so at this time you're under arrest for DUI, yes, sir.
allegedly finding 2 opioid pills in his pocket.
That's a narco. Narco?
Yeah. Okay. Florida's Martin County Sheriff releasing hours of footage from the star golfer's DUI arrest.
This is fun.
Here he describes the moment he hit a truck's trailer.
Look down my phone, and all of a sudden, boom.
Then there's an apparent phone call with President Trump.
Thank you so much. All right, you got it. All right, thank you. Bye. Say again?
Just keep you down here with us, please.
Yeah, I was just talking to the president.
In the videos, Woods has constant hiccups and repeatedly shakes his head. During those field sobriety tests, at times he struggles with the deputy's instructions.
Try not to move your head, okay?
You got the hiccups.
Earlier, Woods' manager asked investigators for help retrieving the star golfer's clubs, including his priceless putter.
I've won 14 majors with it.
Are you golfing in the Masters this year?
Hoping to.
Yeah.
Depends on y'all.
Yeah. Don't depend on me.
First responders later smashing his SUV's window to retrieve that putter. Woods' manager showing it off.
Well, that's a piece of history right there, huh?
Once handcuffed in the back of the squad car, Woods yawns, closing his eyes. He's since pleaded not guilty and said he's stepping away for treatment.
All right, Jesse, thank you for that. For more, let's bring in Tom D'Angelo. He's a sports reporter for USA Today, has covered Tiger Woods throughout his career. Tom, good to have you with us this morning. I know it can be hard to watch some of that video there. This was Woods' 4th major vehicle accident since 2009. This is someone admired by a generation, if not many generations of golfers who followed him. How is the golf world reacting to what happened here?
Well, thanks for having me, guys. It's really disbelief. I mean, here we go again. In 2017, when he was arrested, not far away, he was in Jupiter then. This was Jupiter Island. He vowed at that point, this will not happen again. I will work very hard so this never happens again. At that point, he was found with a concoction of about 5 different prescription medications in his system. And the thing about Tiger is he always has overcome. He's such a great athlete. He's overcome the injuries, the surgeries, the arrests. And what happens in about a year after the 2017 arrest, a little bit more, he wins the Masters and he's on top of the world. Then a few years after that, he gets into a horrific one-car crash that almost cost him his life and nearly cost him his right leg. And again, he's come back and he's had surgery since then. And now he was hoping to play in the Masters. So I think people just are, people are in this area, the very first thing you hear from everybody is, why doesn't he have a driver? And secondly, he needs help. And he seemed to have addressed that with his statement. The other night, the first step on that journey, saying he's stepping away from golf, which is the best move he could make, and seeking treatment.
Tom, in addition to that announcement that he's stepping away for that treatment, Woods, he also turned down the role of captain for the 2027 Ryder Cup. And we're hearing from the PGA, they're saying that they stand in full support of Tiger Woods. They support this decision. Tiger, of course, is a golf legend, but just kind of how have these personal problems impacted his career and his standing in the golf world? Oh,
As far as statistical, is the stats in his career greatly. In 2009 was his first major issue when he backed into that fire hydrant and tree, and his personal life was exposed to the world. Since that point, he's won one major championship, and that was the Masters in 2019. At that point, he had 14. He was 4 away from Jack Nicklaus's record. There's no one can tell, no one would believe that if that had not happened, and if these issues had not happened, that he would not be the all-time leader in majors. I believe it would have been in the 20s. This was 16 years ago, 17 years ago. How many majors could he have won? Now, he's won 11 times in the PGA Tour since that accident in 2009. But as far as his record, there's no doubt he would have been the all-time leader in major championships. He's still, Tiger is, like I said, he's like Teflon. He just keeps coming back. He's still adored. He's still one of the most popular athletes in the world. Despite going through all this, I think now it's more empathy, sympathy. People are just feeling, saying you have a problem here that, it's all occurred obviously because of all these injuries, and these painkillers are highly addictive, and people perhaps give him a break for that because of that. But I'll tell you, if something happens where he hurts somebody else, and he's already hurt himself, that sentiment will definitely change.
Tom, we only have a few seconds left here, but so many people are making note of the comment that Tiger Woods made in the video saying he was on the phone with the president, also a big golfer. What is their relationship like?
It's unbelievable down here, because that's all you hear about is when Donald Trump comes down here is him playing golf. Tiger tries to keep himself apolitical. Tiger has played golf with 2 Democrat presidents and 2 Republican presidents. He's much like Michael Jordan. He tries to stay in the middle so he doesn't turn off one group. They are close. Obviously, probably closer than any other president because of Donald Trump's love for golf. None of the others played as much golf as Donald Trump does. So, and Donald Trump, obviously, as we know, loves to go out there and play with celebrities, play with professional athletes. So they have been close in that sense, it's on the golf course.
Tom D'Angelo, good to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Let's get a look now ahead at what to expect this holiday weekend with your Morning News Now weather.
Angie Lastman joins us with the forecast for the holiday. Angie, good morning.
Hi, guys. Happy Friday. We made it last day of the work week, and we're headed into, of course, a holiday weekend, as you mentioned. And we've got a couple of things going on. We've got this exiting storm across parts of New England. You'll notice a little bit of that wet weather happening. And then this secondary storm that we're monitoring across parts of the midsection of the country, bringing snow, bringing ice, and the potential for severe storms. So let's start with the wintry weather of this system. And that's leaving us with a couple of alerts out towards New England, but most of it, at least the bulk of them, across parts of the Great Lakes in the Midwest and stretching across the northern plains. Notice 6 million people in this region have those winter alerts up right now, and we're gearing up for over a foot of snow in some spots. You can see across Minnesota and the Dakotas. This is going to leave us also with the potential for some ice accumulation that I'm concerned about power outages and tree damage for. So this is going to be across parts of mainly Michigan, stretching across Wisconsin. That's where you'll see those higher amounts up to 1/4 of an inch, and where we'll likely see that tree damage. Here's how it all plays out. The stormy pattern kind of sets up, and the stronger storms are stretching from Iowa to Texas today. So it's the winds, the hail, and even a couple of tornadoes possible. If you live in Kansas City, St. Louis, Springfield, Oklahoma City, all of those locations, I would have a way to get your alerts this afternoon. That system works its way to the east tomorrow. We'll see that slight risk across the Ohio Valley. And then as we get into Sunday, not quite as much of a severe risk, but still some wet weather just in time for the weekend for our friends celebrating, of course, Easter. Here's what that weekend forecast looks like. Plenty of sunshine out west, guys. I told you about that system, but otherwise, this is my favorite thing to do with you two specifically.
Wait, hold on,
Lamb, Colorado. Yeah, which ones do you like? How about Eggville, Mississippi?
I want to go to Hopland, California.
Yeah, that's cute. Or Lily, Florida, also cute.
Yeah.
I do what I can to make things interesting for you guys.
Oh, I love it. Thank you, Angie.
Nothing like a
Happy
holiday now.
Easter.
Happy Easter.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.